minute or so?
I think you can take another like a minute max, and then we can start.
And then another thing.
You can go online, live. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
All righty. Good. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on which time zone you are in. And assalamu alaikum. My name is Dr. Sarfraz Hasni, and I am a clinical research scientist at National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. And my focus of research is in lupus. And I'm involved with doing early phase clinical trials as well as translational research and understanding the pathogenesis and underlying disease mechanisms of autoimmune diseases. And I'll be moderating this session, and it's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome our speaker today, Professor Javed Akram. So Professor Javed Akram has a very long and meritorious and illustrious career, and I can go on and on with his introduction for a long time, but I don't want to be between him and you because we are all here to listen to him. But very briefly, Professor Javed Akram is an eminent professor of medicine in Pakistan. And he has been Vice Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer of 3 major universities and attached hospitals. He's also the founding president of Pakistan Society of Internal Medicine, which has branches in UK, US, and many other places. And they do provide research grants and so forth. In addition, he also was transformed the Pakistan Institute of Medical Sciences Hospital in Islamabad and Jinnah Hospital, Lahore, during his tenure. And under his leadership, the UHS, the University Hospital, became top university of the region and enjoyed recognition in the prestigious QS ranking of universities from New York. He's also an international advisor for developing countries for the prestigious Royal College of Physicians, London, and has been a fellow of Royal College of Edinburgh and Glasgow. He's also a fellow of American College of Cardiology, American College of Medicine, and he's an international healthcare advisor for the Islamic Development Bank and has revolutionized healthcare system in several countries in Asia, Asia, Europe, and Africa under the various IDB projects. He is very active in research phenomena, and his research factor currently is 672, which is very high. So with that brief introduction, I would request Professor Javed Akram. First of all, thank you for taking time. I know you're very busy, but I would request you to please start your talk, and I will mute myself. And please take it away, Professor Javed Akram. Again, thank you and welcome.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and Assalamu alaikum to everybody wherever we all are. And thank you so much, Sarfraz, for the introduction. And I'm very, very grateful to Dr. Uzair. And technically, we have been supported by Waleed, and I'm very grateful to both of them, as well as all of you for the honor. It's a great honor for me to talk to colleagues around the world, especially with APPNA. APPNA is an organization that we all safely can be proud of. So without any further delay, so we again start with the holy name of Almighty Allah. And I'll be discussing about Pakistan clinical research landscape. And in particular, Dr. Zair has asked me to talk about UHS, that where we stand with these universities. So I will very briefly talk about the fact sheet of Pakistan. Where do we stand as well as far as the health and research is concerned. Then I'll talk about the research landscape in Pakistan, the regulatory pathway, which is not very old, but at least we now have a regulatory framework intact. And then publications from Pakistan, from my university, then UHS research initiatives, then UHS, what role it played during the pandemic or still playing, and then I'll conclude. So I start with this very nice quote from Ban Ki-moon, UN Secretary General, that very nicely he quoted, and very true for us in Pakistan, that each year millions of women and children die from preventable diseases. These are not mere statistics. They are people with names and faces. Their suffering is unacceptable in the 21st century, but unfortunately, it remains reality in this country. When we look at the top 10 burdens and causes of death in Pakistan, obviously, we are still struggling with the communicable diseases in the red. And now we are facing a huge disease burden from non-communicable diseases. Still, we are struggling to contain the neonatal disorders and deaths due to neonatal disorders, which is mainly due to diarrheal disease and respiratory disease in the neonates. And then obviously we have ischemic heart disease, which is the #1 killer in adults in Pakistan, and stroke, the #1 cause of disability in Pakistan. And then we have diarrheal diseases, lower respiratory tract infections. Tuberculosis is still rampant. And unfortunately, now we have XDR, which is extensively resistant tuberculosis. COPD, diabetes, chronic kidney disease due to diabetes, hypertension, and so on, and then chronic liver disease. Still, we are struggling with hepatitis B, C epidemic, but on top of that, now we have fatty liver. And so this dual burden of disease is causing many premature deaths due to neonatal disorders. Remember that we had Millennium Development Goals and we missed those. We pledged to the world that we'll be able to decrease the infant mortality and the maternal mortality. So we were unable to do that. So we decided to rename it and have a better luck by calling them Sustainable Development Goals. But still we are missing them. And then ischemic heart disease and all these things, and still the salmonella infection is rampant as far as the premature deaths are concerned in children and adults even. And the dailies that we call is because of the anemia. And about 50% of our females are severely or moderately anemic, mostly iron deficiency. Then also the psychological problems are there, especially in the females. Then obviously musculoskeletal disorders, backache, the usual thing, anxiety, depression, and so on. We are the 5th largest population, and year 2048, we will be the 3rd largest population, unfortunately, because we are producing more children than any other nation. So India will be the most populous country, then it will be China, and then it will be Pakistan. And unfortunately, the resources are not coping up with that. Life expectancy, you can see we are behind the global life expectancy there. And you all know, because this is your motherland, that Balochistan is the largest area-wise, but scarcely populated. Punjab is the most populated, and then Sindh and KPK. And you can see that we have a large population of children under 5, which is about 33 million children. So we are a very young nation, the youngest nation in the world right now. And we have 51 million childbearing mothers. Our population is above 232 million. And with that, if we add 1.4 million registered and same amount of unregistered Afghan refugees with us. Every hour, more than 750 children are born. This is the highest fertility rate in the world right now. One mother dies during pregnancy. So that's a very unfortunate situation, nothing to be proud of. And then more than 50 children die before their 5th birthday. So again, we are still struggling with infant mortality and maternal mortality. Some degree of decrease has occurred, whichever parameter you look at, the different organizations, still the graph is not going down as rapidly as it should. So still we are struggling with these things. What about the non-communicable diseases? Unfortunately, we have been caught very badly with obesity. Many of my studies have shown that 50% of the school children, whether we did this study in HSN College as well as Madangada High School, are overweight or obese, and this was published data. So you can imagine this is that why this such a huge burden from non-communicable diseases. WHO underestimates our obesity figures by about 9%, but in fact, in Pakistan now, more than 50% of the population is obese or overweight. Remember, now we have moved in Indo-Asians, we have moved IDF, International Diabetes Federation, whom I represent in this area as well. We have moved away from the weighing machine, and we are talking about measuring tapes. And now our cutoff is 36 inches of waist in a Pakistani descent male and 35 inches waist in a female. That would classify to be overweight and obese. So if we apply that, more than 50% of our population is already obese. And Pakistani obesity is very, very different. And this is my area of interest personally, the organ damage and all that. As Pakistanis, even if you live, we did a study in Rochdale and compared it to Pakistanis who migrated in Rochdale and to us that we live in Pakistan. We are all insulin resistant. Even if we are underweight, we are insulin resistant. So very huge genetic predisposition to insulin resistance right from the birth onwards, and usually expresses diabetes, hypertension, obesity, dyslipidemia in the middle age or so. Our obesity is mainly central, what we call is Lota obesity or apple obesity, while the Caucasians, as you know, they are more globesity. We have more organ obesity in the liver. Our liver, even with the normal weight, I have shown in 2 studies, they are still fatty livers. So any non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is rampant right now. And we think in year 2055, we will be doing more transplants because of this disease, fatty liver, rather than hepatitis B and C, which obviously there are now quite effective medications available. Our diabetes, hypertension, things like that do not come alone. It comes with a lot of baggage. So usually the same person is, because of the pathogenic mechanism is insulin resistance, there is clustering of all these metabolic components. This is a very interesting study that I did that our adipokines, the fat cells, we all know excrete more than 130 peptides, good and bad. Now, one good peptide that white fat cells excrete is adiponectin, because this is vasodilatory. This addresses the insulin resistance, and this also redistributes the fat to our advantage. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, our fat cells are not producing that much adiponectin. And even if they produce, apart from insulin resistance, we are also resistant to the action of adiponectin. It doesn't, that's tighty signaling and other. So we have diffuse atherogenesis as compared to the Caucasians and even blacks who have localized disease in the different vascular beds, whether in the cerebral vascular bed or the cardiac vascular bed or the peripheral. But we have diffuse disease, which doesn't fare very well to invasion by stents or things like that. So we are a diabetogenic country. We have more than 50 million diabetics right now. This is a recent study where we showed that about 25% of our population is either pre-diabetic or is already diabetic. So this is enormous, you know, in such a big country, having 25%, and then all of them, only 90% of them are either not diagnosed, or even if diagnosed, they are ill-controlled. At target, HbA1c below 6.5 only happens in lucky 10% of the diabetics. So we are looking at huge disease burden from renal failure because of diabetes and hypertension. And already we estimated that we need 600,000 dialysis machine in Pakistan right now, working 3 shifts. But in fact, we have only 29,000 machines, dialysis machines. So most of the people die without the dialysis. And similarly, the insulin use, which should have been, highest in the world, we use less insulin in whole Pakistan as compared to just London. So Baker's hypothesis is very interesting, and it tells us that if you have poor intrauterine health, you have low birth weight, and due to intrauterine growth retardation, you are more likely to develop metabolic syndrome in the middle age or adult. And then obviously hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. Now, worldwide, we have 2.5 kilogram or less babies, 15%. While in South Asia, they are 26%. And in our own study in Rawalpindi, they are already about 27.4%. So our intrauterine health is not good. So obviously, it's not a surprise that we are facing this huge mammoth burden of NCDs. One reason lies over here. This is a study that we published quite little from from US in PLOS One journal, which is a high impact journal. Me and my group, at that time I was working as principal Allama Iqbal Medical College. We looked at the different districts of Punjab. Punjab is supposed to be the best performing province in Pakistan as far as health is concerned. We look at antenatal coverage at primary health centers and facilities, and looked at the providers, client, provider, and managers, stakeholders' impression. Unfortunately, majority of our females were not coming for an antenatal care. And the second visit, only 1/3 were coming. So about 2/3 of the deliveries were not done by the skilled birth attendants, neither antenatal care nor the deliveries. So that is why the poor antenatal care, on top of our genetics, and then obviously the energy dense food and energy expenditure with the automation coming, the tractors replacing the plowing and the lifts replacing the sprayers and so on. Obviously, we are paying a very, very heavy price for all this. In Pakistan, according to my own study, 2016, again, every second Pakistani is hypertensive. It's a different thing whether he knows it or not. And we are only controlling less than 7% of the hypertension, which is the lowest figure in the world, unfortunately. Coming to the health research, you can see that main players, of course, are US, China, Japan, and Germany and Europe. India is an emerging market for trials, but Pakistan, you can see they are very, very small dot there. We are spending very, very little, and very little happening on this front in Pakistan. But fortunately, in COVID-19, Pakistan really came as a surprise, just like in cricket, sometimes we give a surprise that we are on the trial maps as far as Pakistan is concerned, because we did quite a number of trials successfully. When we look at the research, obviously we start with the target and drug discovery and then test it in the animals. And then you all know phase 1 trial for the safety of fewer volunteers, then phase 2, phase 3, and then post-marketing phase 4 trials. So we have very good lab for the small animals and the large animals at University of Health Sciences, and we use it quite freely. We also, if anybody from outside the university needs it, now he or she is allowed to use our lab for the experimentation purposes. Health spending in Pakistan, when we talk of the research, also, obviously this comes from the research spending comes from the budget of the health spending. But unfortunately, the health spending itself is minimum, not compared to the world, but compared to the neighboring countries, the developing world. We are spending less than 3% of the GDP. And you can see that spending is also morely aggressive. That means issue-based on dengue or some epidemic, pandemic, but not in a progressive fashion. So that is why the results are not forthcoming. We keep telling the major stakeholders, which are our politicians and bureaucrats, that please do the progressive form of spending, but they want to tell through the media, the public, that they care. So they do compensation for that, things like that, and they think, but then that most of the funds are lost also. Then another thing that in Pakistan is happening, that we are spending almost 80% of the health budget on few ivory towers. That's the tertiary care hospital. So the primary care is totally ignored. You can see that we are spending much less on the primary care, which is the first line of defense, and all the opportunity for prevention is on the first line of defense, that is the primary care. So primary health care is mostly being provided by general practitioners, which are not part of the mainline health system, the public health care. So you can see that the requirement is huge. You can, according to the Lancet, and we are far, far behind that. So if you look at the research funding, most of the research funding comes, from either the self means some PhD scholar or MPhil, MD scholar, or MD, MS scholar in my university would start a research with from their own pocket sometimes. Then we have certain student societies. We encourage our students, undergraduate and postgraduates, to do research. All my final year students, they are supposed to write 2 papers during their MBBS undergrad now, and they have to publish it in some journal. So at least there is some development there. Then mostly the research is being done for synopsis and thesis and defense of the thesis. Universities have a budget, and mostly that budget remains unutilized, unfortunately. Higher Education Commission has huge amount of budget, but they are facing cuts because of the economic recession meltdown that we are facing. Pakistan Medical Research Council, Pakistan Health Research Councils, they are government agencies, but hardly funding the research right now. Science and Technology Ministry is supposed to have adequate funds, but again, very difficult to disperse them. I usually work with Pakistan Science Foundation. I am also their reviewer. They are the easier part. If you are targeting for a budget of less than 20 million, then PSF. If you are above 20 million, your target, your grant you need is then HEC, you go to HEC. Pharmaceutical industry is a good resource for us, especially the national pharmaceutical industries, because the multinationals, what they do is they do not fund our investigator-initiated research, because most of the research in Pakistan on the pharmaceutical side is investigator led or investigator-driven research, and then we ask a pharma for the grant. It's not the other way. With the multinational, it's the other way around. Fortunately, we have good national companies now who are supporting us on this front, especially Pakistan Society of Internal Medicine. We get a very handsome grant from all these if we give them good results. Global Fund, Islamic Development Bank, Asia Development Bank can also fund, but again, they are painfully slow to respond. Many times we are part of the multi-country study like Native, where I am the principal investigator, and many studies because now the pharmaceutical companies think that Indo-Asian population they cannot ignore, so they are coming to Pakistan. Of course, India is their favorite destination, but now we are competing with India. Here you can see that the Higher Education Commission is the richest organization as far as the research, followed by Pakistan Science Foundation, Pakistan Health Research Council, and then institutional and some international bodies. This is the breakup of those research. Here you can see that its research funding increased in 2016-17, but then again they cut off the economic problems, the meltdown. The research funding is also suffering. Here you can see the research publications are going up, and the reason is not that more research is taking place. The reason is because people want their publications, because you cannot become assistant professor till you have 2 publications, and you can't become associate professor till you have 8, and you can't become vice chancellor till you have 18, especially high impact factor. So that is why there is, but unfortunately the quality of the research paper is not something that we can be proud of. Here you can see in a country of more than 220 million, potentially the 3rd largest country, only 3 impact factor journals. So it's a shame on us that although we have 270 health journals, but impact factor journals are only 3. And the highest impact journal, Pakistan Journal of Medical Sciences, is also 2.4. Very little impact. So this is the reason that University of Health Sciences, I recently started Department of Medical Journalism. We are offering courses for medical editors and also advanced courses for medical editors. And now we are offering undergraduate, graduate BS program and master's program on medical journalism, with the hope that we have more professionalism in the medical journalism. So there are more impact factor journals here. This is the standard research pathway that we follow in Pakistan and also at UHS, that we ask our students to come up with an idea in PhD student or undergraduate, and then do the literature search, and then title feasibility, then protocol development. We of course help them, and then they come up with the budget development, and then they look for funding sources wherever, and then site selection, team building, which is extremely important, and then approval of these sites is now required, then recruitment, monitoring for compliance, and then interim results or emergency used authorization, and then we usually conclude, and publications would come out. You can see that usually with FDA and even with Pakistan, it takes about 6 to 7 years time frame, starting from the research, whether it's vaccine or a drug, and then going to phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and then obviously the phase 4, which is post-marketing over there, usually takes minimum of 6 years. But during the COVID, it wasn't everything subsequent or linear. We were never waiting for phase 1. We started phase 1 and phase 2 together and phase 3 together. So the whole thing was compressed from 6 years to 12 months or 18 months. So to get EUA approval, because obviously people were dying every minute, every hour, and every day. So that is the reason we also followed this norm. In Pakistan, very little research happens, and especially the quality. And even if it happens, very little prospects of that research becoming commercialized. In my own case, we have 27 patents from US FDA under my name or my team's name, which includes interferon, colony-stimulating factor, insulin, erythropoietin, growth hormone, PAC-derm, which is a biological derm for skin burns, because burns are unfortunately very most prevalent countries in Pakistan. And then we have a lot of plant compounds, which have antiviral properties. But problem is that there is no industry in Pakistan which can commercialize it, because we do not have a single biotechnology plant. That is something that my dream, to bring biotechnology to Pakistan. So I've made many consortiums, but so far I haven't been successful. So these are mostly biosimilar products. We import them. We import 40 billion rupees of these drugs, and they cannot, unfortunately, because we cannot, we don't have facility. Now it is not job of the university or of the government to put up this industry. Entrepreneurs must come in, but our pharma somehow is happy having a refilling of these compounds, or at the most importing them and then distributing them. And then when I tried to commercialize or go towards the production of this, I was stopped. In fact, I was put in jail for many, many times, because the import mafia hired the biggest of the lawyers, and they had the money. And then it was all over in the newspaper, especially with the PAC-derm. Now, this is a skin, biological skin. A Euroderm is cost in a 60 kg person who is burnt, 60%, where he has chances of 5% of survival in Pakistan in burn centers. Here, obviously, if you use biological skin immediately, the chance of survival from 5% increases to about 60%. But it will cost something like 7 to 8 million rupees. With PAC-derm, it costs only 500,000 rupees, and they are equally good in my studies that I have done. But when I tried to make it, obviously the importers got after me, and they very successfully were able to block us. Finally, the Supreme Court came to my rescue, and suo motu notice, which is still going on. And that is when the regulation came in. Supreme Court heard me many, many times on the research angle, and I told them there are no regulations, no regulatory pathway, and then there is no a pathway to commercialize these compounds. So why do a research in Pakistan if it cannot be commercialized? So most of the research in Pakistan is for upgrading of your CV or improving your impact factor. But believe me, at my stage of life, Almighty Allah, thanks to Allah, that I have a reasonably good impact factor. But for me, this is not important, nothing to be proud of. For me, impact on the society is much more important, which is very, very abysmal, unfortunately, very little, because of the reasons I told you: conflict of interest, no industry responsive enough to commercialize our inventions. So that is why we rely mainly on imports. So research regulation in Pakistan, again, it was Supreme Court on my suo motu notice. Still the case is ongoing, Javed Akram versus state. And Chief Justice, this is the fourth Chief Justice which hears this case. And I'm very thankful to the Supreme Court. And now they have implementation Justice Ijazul Hasan, who is the senior most judge, who will be the next Chief Justice, making sure that our ideas are implemented. So they came up, they asked us to draft the rules. We did draft the rules, 218. We had this regulatory pathway for clinical trials, research and development, pharmacovigilance, and we had also cap on the marketing, because they were giving unethical practices were rampant at that time. They still are, but now it's slightly better because people are afraid of Supreme Court. So we have ethical review board in our all institutes. It's a must now. So from there, the protocol goes to the National Bioethics Committee in Islamabad, in NIH. And then also we have Provincial Bioethics Committee if you want to do the research only in province. If you want to do it in all provinces or beyond your province, then you go to national. Obviously, finally, then we apply to DRAP, Drug Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, where there is clinical, a separate pharmacovigilance and regulatory board. And I am fortunate, I was part of this committee. And there we look at the protocol, we analyze it, we look, we ask the PI, principal investigator, co-PI to defend their protocol. And then we look at the budgeting, the conflict of interest thing. And then we go ahead and look at the sites and inspect the sites where it is going to be conducted, the research, and also inspect the labs and things like that. So the NBC charges 20,000 for multi-center and 200,000, 50,000 for reviewing a private industry-funded proposal, and 200,000 we pay to DRAP, and 100,000 for a site approval wherever. Recently, because there was nothing guiding, stem cell misuse was rampant. Beauticians were doing it, rheumatologist was doing it, orthopedic surgeons were injecting chondrocytes or no chondrocytes, just centrifuging the fat taken from the tummy and injecting it and saying they are doing stem cell therapy. So we told Supreme Court, me and my colleagues, that this is happening. And then they asked us, what should we do? I said, we must draft the guidelines and the stem cell rule. So again, me and my group, you can see myself and Professor Riazuddin and all of us, we spent about 3.5 months, and now these are available on DRAP websites. You can all read it and comment upon it. So coming to the UHS itself, UHS, before I joined UHS, it was known to just affiliate colleges because of the power vested in it, because of the law that everything in private or public sector in Punjab must be affiliated with UHS. So that is why all the medical college, dental college, nursing and allied health had to be affiliated with UHS. But when I joined, for Alhamdulillah, the Kashmir 11 medical colleges opted to join. So we are in Kashmir now, and some Sindh institutes like Gambit Institute also applied, and we obliged them. So we became suddenly a research intensive university with highest impact factor. We ahead of Aga Khan now, and especially in the COVID-19 trials, we did quite well. So when I joined UHS, my first job was to start a research degree program and to have a whole research department and a director research. And then I decided on a research agenda which was indigenous, which would benefit my country and which benefit my people. So these were the main things, NCDs. So we did a Pak obesity study, the adiponectin study. We did more than 20 studies on diabetes, and we are still working on monogenic diabetes. In Pakistan, if you develop diabetes as a 10-year-old boy, you are given insulin, while majority of the diabetes, the commonest type of diabetes at that age is type 2, Moody's, majority onset of diabetes of the young, and then monogenic diabetes. So we are right now, still it is an ongoing project of mine, which I'm doing, hypertension and diabetes. Breast cancer also we are doing with the genetics. PACDERM study I also told you. My own work is on statins. We know that American College of Cardiology and all the bodies say that if you are diabetic, hypertensive, or if you have had a heart attack or stroke, you must be on a statin for lifelong. Now, a statin reduce mortality about 35%, at the most 40%. So to me, after 20 years of use, to me it means that 60% of the people do not benefit. Why give them statin? So we are profiling these people before giving them statin, what we call is personalized or precision medicine, and then give statin only to those people who are responsive and not to give it to the non-responsive. We also are forensic department is doing a lot of work on biosecurity, biosafety, and indigenous chemicals being used, crime scene investigation. We help our police in this. We are like main players in crime scene investigation, which are doing with the DNA and all that. And we have done 2 studies to this effect. We are also doing dengue serotyping and also working on dengue vaccines right now. And also the Salmonella XDR. My study has been published in Frontiers, and with the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. Infant mortality and child mortality, an ANC study I presented. We started in our hospitals now, it is a routine to do neonatal screening, to do screening for phenylketonuria, genetic defects, everything right at birth. From heel, we take couple of mLs of blood, and we do health outbreaks, alerts, and mutants. We study of all the viral diseases and bacterial profiles and sensitivities. They are uploaded. Hotspot shifting, we all do all the work. From nutrition, we have done adiponectin studies and nurses study, where we have evaluated many times the nurses and the lady doctors for other things. Vitamin D, we have more than 24 papers published in the last 4 years. We are the #1 group. This is something that I think Pakistan can be proud of. We are the #1 group globally in deafness, blindness, and mental retardation of genetic origin. And we also are the only university in Pakistan, or perhaps the second in the world, which is doing gene editing for thalassemia. So this work, we have about 1,500 families, consanguineous families, which are spread in Balochistan and all that. And we have a mobile lab for collection of the samples. And John Hopkins, Maryland University, we are very much working along with them. And they changed their, because they had a panel of tests, and still they were negative for the father and the mother, but still people were being born, children were being born with mental retardation. And we told them that there are 20 other genes which were being missed. So now these genes, genetic testing, have been included in the panels of John Hopkins. Our oral dental disease, we do forensic odontology. All the airplane crashes, the burn incidents, we investigate and identify the dead bodies through forensic odontology. We have worked with growth hormone study with our orthodontics, that growth hormone, if given to these kids, will reduce the root reabsorption problem. Immunization, we have done a lot of efficacy studies with EPI for government, and also sewerage studies for different viruses, especially with the polio, and also with the COVID-19 we have recently done. Vector-borne diseases we do for dengue. We genetically have modified Aedes aegypti and are still in the process of commercializing this. And also biological control with guppy fish. We have also done a study on this, and which is a very popular study amongst dengue prevalent countries. Health system research, we were the university which gave the government Vision 2025, and also our public health department has done a lot of health financing and inappropriate health financing studies. Drug research, we do lots of drug research. We did work on drug delivery systems, making them SR, MR, things like that, disintegration time. Pharma research, proteins, pharma proteins, 27 pharma proteins, ParkDerm, World, we are chair principal center for World Ramadan Study Group. Every Ramadan, we do 2 or 3 studies. We are part and parcel of SAMISIA, which is South and Southeast Asia Medical Research and University Alliance. In COVID, we were the first responders, and because our vision was not to sit idle and to play our due role. In March 3rd, the virus landed in March 3rd, 2020 to UHS. And immediately we started telemedicine because our hospitals were closed down, the OPDs were closed down. So we had telemedicine. We were the first one in the region to start it. And if you read the book, which is available on Amazon by Angus Wells, just released, he wrote 2 chapters on UHS. You will be very happy to really read it online, this book. We had a telemedicine center in our main campus, on a Jinnah campus, and then in all our affiliated hospitals. And it was such a success story that from there we were so motivated that I started health informatics department, and now we are giving out a degree on health informatics, BS degree, out of which 1 semester is telemedicine. March 20, we did PPE study. We invented Johnson & Johnson's PPE was costing around $50. So we made our own PPE on the same standards, and our PPE was costing us 400 rupees. And we tested it against that, our microbiology department. And then on March 21, we started the largest ever trial done in this region. That was PROTECT trial. Pakistan randomized observational trial to evaluate treatment options. You know, when COVID struck us, we never knew what works and what doesn't work. So we came up with 8-arm study consisting of hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, oseltamivir, and various combinations of these. And the last was placebo arm. So the interim release was result in July 2020. And it was this was also registered at trials.com from USA, this study. And you can see that clinicaltrials.gov, this number is still there. And it was a consortium of 11 universities, 13 hospitals, where it was a multi-center study. But the principal center was, of course, UHS. We enrolled 1,565 mild to moderate symptomatic patients. And what we saw that the mortality reduced, the morbidity reduced when we were very aggressive, when we were using the combination of macrolide and hydroxychloroquine and antiviral oseltamivir. So this was the study. You can see that the H arm had better outcomes than all the other arms. So the total number of deaths in this study was 24. And this is already published, the interim release and the final release. Then we were the first one to start a national study on plasmapheresis, which later on we were stopped because internationally the plasmapheresis did not show any result. But in our cohort, it was quite useful. May 11, we started COVID diagnostic lab, and we started work on mutations of various mutations. And we were usually the first one to respond to report these mutations. August 20, we competed for the HEC Rapid grant, which came up. And this was to look at the immunological, viral, and genetic variants and bases of COVID-19. So this was my team that worked day and night, and we came up with gene expressions of different genetic mutations and variations in the RNA, and we defined them in Pakistan, looking at the viral genomics and cellular response, host genetics. And we had the interim publication, and then the final publication is underway now in Lancet. These are the hospitals from where we collaborated with, from Pakistan Institute of Medical Sciences, Khyber Medical University, and so on. September 1st, we started the first dose of CanSino. We were this was the first ever vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, injected to Mr. Rana Azim, who is a very well-known journalist. Of course, with his permission, I'm showing his picture, and all the pictures will be that I'm showing is I have obtained the consent of everybody. So CanSino Bio, we were the principal centers. 5,000 volunteers were recruited, and this has been published already in Lancet. This was a placebo-controlled study, and then we had an immunogenicity study in this. This then ZF 2001, which was the first cell-based vaccine. CHO, Chinese hamster ovary, was taken as platform, and it was not a viral vector vaccine, just like CanSino, where adenovector 5 was used. So CanSino, we were the regional principal center, not looking just at the Pakistan, but around Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and other things. So we started this trial in March 10th, and this is still ongoing. We had all the approvals achieved, and again, our sponsors were so happy, which is Anhui Pharmaceutical from China, which is the largest second largest biotechnology company of China, that they gifted us a huge research center, which is now a reality in my campus. So this is fully manned and solarized building, no connection of electricity or anything, green building, first green building in Pakistan, which have been gifted to us, and we have named it at Silk Route Clinical Trial Center now. So in April 2021, we started stem cell use in COVID-19 lung damage, and this is still going on with very promising results. 39 patients have been done so far. So pulmonary stem cells have been used in respiratory cripples and also in acute pulmonary damage, 2 studies. Victory study was one of very good study, which we did on vitamin D. We gave very high doses of vitamin D, 200,000 every day to people, to patients who were admitted with cytokine storm in our wards. Here, Victory study, which was published in a very high impact journal, and Professor Gimbel told us that this is a Nobel Prize thing. We showed for the first time that vitamin D, despite if it is normal, still you give vitamin D, you will reduce the cytokines and also gene expression of the cytokines. So I'm sorry, I'm rushing through it. Chemostat, which is the serine inhibitor, again is being used. Antigen-based testing, lateral flow metry, we tested this and validated for passengers and everybody. Aspirin retrospective study we are doing, and we are about to finish it, where we have shown that use of aspirin before you contract COVID-19 would help you 25% chance of keeping you away from ventilator. Polytrack, multiple various combination of vaccine used in same patients were very safe. Again, there is no trial registry in Pakistan, so UHS came with the first trial registry in Pakistan. In the interest of transparency of trial, the trial should be registered and visible to the volunteers, to the supporters, to the industry, to the regulators. So I'll conclude that we have tried to do our bit in COVID and built sustainable linkages all over the world, both in the East and West. And also the cross-cultural bridges are now translating into translational research for us. And our patents that are now going to China and other countries for commercialization. So we have published more than 200 papers, and out of them 90 have been in research factor journal. Victory trial was published in very high impact journal, and our biomedical own journal have become almost now a impact factor journal. And we published a supplement of biomedica on COVID, 360 pages. So this is my research center, this is my team, the research team, and this is myself in the backdrop of the Silk Route Research Center. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Javed Akram. This was a very comprehensive overview, and kudos to you and your team for doing an excellent job in terms of first laying out the framework in terms of what are the different issues and some of the daunting tasks. And secondly, in terms of how you have been able to navigate and do the clinical research in some very challenging circumstances. So again, thank you so much for your time and for a very comprehensive review. And I see there are a number of questions in the chats and question answer, but I will leave it to my panel discussants. Professors Dr. Syed Uzair and Dr. Umar Hayat, and I think Dr. Sarwat Hussain is also here. So over to you guys, and I know we are short on time, but let's try to have at least some discussion. Thank you.
Well, if I may go first. First of all, Professor Sahib, I was breathless listening to your mashallah accomplishments. And it looks as if there must be a large number of clones of Professor Javed Akram who could accomplish the task that you have enumerated, because it seems impossible that one person would do, and I mean that as a compliment to you, sir. One of the comments that I will make, since I'm a radiologist, is that the Diagnostic Commission on Lancet Commission on Diagnostic, which I was a part of, has also published the role of or absence of diagnostics in not only primary care, but healthcare also. And I've said about 47% of world population has no diagnostics available. And there are many aspects where the diagnostic could reduce the not only the number of deaths, but also the budgetary allocation. And that has been kind of ignored also, mainly in the Sustainable Development Goals also, which the Diagnostic Commission is trying to get attention of all the decision maker. So with that, I'm going to let other people give the comment. And also, Professor Saab, I am the one who tried to work with you also on the quality commission in Pakistan, but then because of the COVID, we could not continue, and I hope to continue that with you later on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sharwat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Javed Akram. I mean, I do not have the word to praise, and I never knew so much. I am quite familiar with some of your work, like the skin, like cloning, and the genetic research, which is well talked about around the globe, your gene study. But I think for the first time in the history of these webinars, I must confess, we need to request you for another session as well, because this is really unfair to conclude everything in these 50 or 55 minutes. Amazing story, and we are really spellbound to know, understand, and you are working all the field, you know, the diagnostic, like the genetics. So one man make the difference, what they call in management, and that is the leadership. So the speed of the engine is the speed of the train. So this is the real proof. So what you created, what you did, and such a small intellectual print in the history of Pakistan. Amazing, amazing. And we definitely come back to you for another session as well, special session for the first time. We have a couple of questions. So the first question is, I think, all the participants, they have praised, they have complimented, and they are, you can see the comment. So there are a couple of comments. One comment is that you are working on the research like the hormone bacteria viruses, but what about the parasites? So that's the first question. Are you considering that? You did mention about something, but I don't see that. Over to you about the. Are you considering because they do have an impact?
Yeah, a very important question. Unfortunately, me and my group haven't got any experience, but I know University of Veterinary Sciences, they are doing this work, and we are collaborating them with the malarial parasite and resistance to various drugs. So parasitic diseases obviously still are very common in Pakistan, and I think they should be given more attention. And we actually, I think University of Veterinary Sciences, they are doing a lot of work on it. So unfortunately, we this not our strength, if any, is genetic diseases, especially deafness, blindness, and mental retardation, and then the viral diseases to some extent, and also the cloning of pharmaceutical proteins.
Okay. So there is another question from someone, and the question is: any research on the role of epigenetics so far on the disease manifestation?
Yes, we are doing epigenetics, and we are that's where we are looking at precision medicine type of a thing, profiling people and profiling bacterias that which which mutations would tell us that this person is going to respond to this drug and not to other drugs. So that we are already doing with statins, I already told you, but we are doing it with many bacteria and antibiotics. Our microbiology colleagues, they are actually doing more epigenetics than anybody else in Pakistan.
There is another question, that is you did mention about the metabolic diseases, you did mention about the correlation, interrelatedness. So this is about the rehabilitation and the role of other sportive measures like the exercise. So the question is, are you considering for any such rehab studies?
Yes, already our public health department, the nutrition department of Shaila, she's doing lifestyle studies, many studies she has done. And in fact, she has come up with different plans and meditation also. I personally have done studies on meditation and blood pressure effect. I used namaz and zikr as as a treatment option for mild to moderate hypertension, and showed that namaz only after training, not namaz where we do all sorts of homework during namaz. A namaz which makes us forget and takes us away from our environment. We do a lot of ambulatory studies. In fact, that's my favorite topic, to do ambulatory studies, because the early morning is the worst time for any human being. The platelets are stickier, cortisol is highest, growth hormone highest. So to blunt that thing, if you get up early, say your namaz and do some zikr, truly which makes you forget about, then the platelet stickiness or adhesiveness decreases, and also the cortisol decreases. So we are doing these studies, and right now I am doing a study on sudden death with interventions at different intervention. So we do a lot of studies, but sometimes I think if I get an opportunity to meet all of you like this, we can discuss them separately if you allow me. Our namaz, zikr study and lifestyle studies, they are quite impactful in fact.
Thank you. Dr. Umar, this is your turn, because
No, thank you.
Professor Javed Akram is also into pharmaceutical, R&D,
Yeah, that
cloning.
was impressive.
So
So I will.
amazing, amazing.
It's really amazing for me. The most important was Dr. Javed Akram was not doing the low-hanging fruits. I mean, he was really going into the areas which are top-notch or breakthrough technologies, even in North America. So very impressive. That's all I will have to say. But surely, Dr. Javed Akram, we will reach you and we will have another call with you. I mean, we really need to bring these commercial clinical trials to Pakistan. You guys have done amazing in terms of the clinical research, but I think it's really time now to move to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you, Umar.
Okay.
Actually, I have done a study to this effect, which you can use to market Pakistan in front of whoever you want. A research activity in US, if it costs around $100,000, in Pakistan, it is going to cost 50,000 rupees because the investigations are quite inexpensive. CT, MR, PET scans are not that expensive. And also the investigators hardly charge anything. And also the honorarium that we give to volunteers is, like few dollars. So that is why it's a good business plan to bring the much required foreign exchange to Pakistan. India is
Absolutely
exploiting onto that.
I think India it's a Eastern Europe where the most of the trials go. India, the challenge is, I was having a recording actually because I was participating in a meeting and I brought really this. I mean, we were conducting some TB trial. The question was why we don't use the Pakistan. And literally it came, their draft timelines very unpredictable. And secondly was the data integrity. So those were the few things. But surely,
you see, if I tell you that Supreme Court bench, which is still, they haven't disposed it off. This is one suo motu that's ongoing. 4 Chief Justices have changed. So don't worry about that. If there is a trial coming to...
that was the only scary part in your presentation when you...
No, it's not scary. It's very supportive. You see, whenever we are stuck up with DRAP or bureaucratic hurdles or political hurdles, only thing we need to just write to the Chief Justice, and within 2-3 days they put up that case and ask everybody to come and they bulldoze it. So there is a safety valve, and I hope they don't dispose it off. Otherwise, so.
That should
don't
not
worry about these things.
Dr. Javed Akram, that should not even happen in the first place. I just want to be very clear on. I think we need to.
I understand.
But we need to work with the DRAP. We need to work with NIH. I mean, the other thought I have, and I would like to share with you, I really believe that whenever we take the trial, and that's what we're going to do, because we are setting up the company in Pakistan, and we will be going into animal as well as the clinical trials. And one of the objectives I have is when we will do a trial, whether it's in animals or in humans, I would like to make sure and have the visibility and transparency that everyone who gets involved get the portion of the money. We really want to, that should be part of even the proposal. So from principal investigator to the nurse, to the technician, to the receptionist, everybody should get a portion of the money. This way, everybody will be engaged. And I would like to make this statement. In the world where the corruption prevails, believe me, just by working hard, you can make more money than taking the bribe. And I'm very much convinced with that fact. And I will stop here, but surely we will have a separate call. And my team is also listening, Dr. Sanaullah. You may have seen some questions from him. He will certainly set up a call with you. We will reach you.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, Professor Javed Akram, and thank you to the panelists, Dr. Zaid, Dr. Murhayat, Dr. Sarwat Sen. I know we are way beyond our time. There are a number of questions in the chat also. I think before we end, there's one question that I've seen several of them have asked is about how can they join your research group, or how to join the research. So is there any last comment that you want to say about that, Professor Javed Akram, before we end?
Sure, we would love to. I have actually tried many times that we should have studies of Pakistanis who have migrated two different countries, and obviously they take their genes with them, but what happens with the environment as far as NCDs are concerned? I've been successful to some extent in UK. We did a Rochdale study, but obviously US with the FDA and other problems probably, but certainly they're most welcome depending upon their interest. They're most welcome. Right now we are doing studies on monogenic diabetes with University of Exeter, again John Hopkins, Maryland University, their genetic department, and we work very much in collaboration. We usually sending our samples there. So we are open to any collaboration, and we would love to involve each one of you. Obviously, probably you have many more resources, and also you probably know you have much more experience. You bring your wealth of experience, and we will be looking at the next level of research if we get support from you, the intellectual support, I mean, which is more important to me than any other support. Please do indicate me directly. Whatever is your area of interest in research, I promise that I'll try everything to make you part and parcel of it. I don't know, as I said, we have very large diabetic population, hypertensive population, and then communicable diseases also, genetic diseases. So whichever your interest is, even you are staying in US, doesn't matter. We can collaborate a lot. You can be part and parcel of the group. We usually, what we do is we assemble people who are interested in certain thematic areas. So we call it a study group. Right now, these days, every day we are working on monogenic diabetes working team. So this is a team that we assemble of some people from UK, some people maybe from UK, the US. The only thing is we don't know your interest. So if once we know your interest, you are a pediatrician or an adult physician or a surgeon, want to do bariatric surgery, you want to look at metabolomics, how it is reversed. So we are open to anything and everything, and we are at your disposal 24/7. Just write to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. And I think I echo everybody's comment that we should probably invite Professor Javed Akram for another talk, because this was not enough. So we need to learn more from you. So thank you so much again for your time with your busy schedule. And thank you to the panelists, and thank you for the APPNA support, and all the participants for attending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Bye.